penny without a mint mark is one of the most fascinating comeback stories in American coinage history. A copper coin born immediately after the famous steel cents of 1943, and a piece that continues to spark excitement among collectors searching for rare wartime treasures. This coin was struck by the United States Mint, and because it carries no mint mark, it was produced at the main facility in Philadelphia, which handled massive coin production during World War II. In 1944, the United States of America was still deeply involved in the global conflict, and metal supplies were carefully managed to support military needs. The year before, in 1943, pennies had been struck in zinc-coated steel to conserve copper for wartime equipment. But in 1944, the mint returned to copper alloy cents, often using recycled shell casings from military ammunition. That wartime metal connection gives the 1944 penny a powerful historical link, as some of the copper used may have once been part of battlefield supplies before being transformed into everyday currency. On the front of the coin appears the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a symbol of unity and strength whose image had already been a fixture on American cents for decades. The original design was created by Victor David Brenner, whose artistic vision gave the Lincoln cent its dignified and timeless appearance. The reverse still featured the classic wheat stalk design, representing agricultural prosperity and stability during a time of global uncertainty. Because Philadelphia struck hundreds of millions of 1944 cents, most examples found today are common and heavily circulated, often showing wear, dark toning, and surface marks. Many coins discovered in jars or inherited collections appear dirty or dull after decades of storage. But experienced collectors know that surface appearance alone does not determine true value. The real excitement surrounding 1944 pennies comes from rare minting errors, particularly the extremely scarce 1944 steel cents that were accidentally struck on leftover 1943 steel planchets. Those rare steel 1944 pennies are among the most famous error coins in American history and have sold for very high prices at auction due to their extreme rarity. Because of these legendary errors, many people carefully check their 1944 pennies with magnets, hoping to discover a steel example hiding among ordinary copper coins. However, the vast majority of 1944 no-mint mark cents are standard copper issues and typically hold modest collector value unless preserved in exceptional condition. High-grade, uncirculated examples with bright, original red surfaces can command strong premiums compared to worn brown examples found in circulation. Collectors also examine coins for doubled lettering, die cracks, or unusual strike characteristics that might add additional interest. Cleaning coins is strongly discouraged, as polishing can permanently damage original surfaces and reduce collectible value. The 1944 pennies circulated at a time when 1 cent still had noticeable purchasing power, buying small goods and contributing to daily wartime transactions. Each coin may have passed through countless hands during a period of rationing, war bond drives, and patriotic sacrifice. The combination of wartime metal history and the possibility of rare steel errors makes this date particularly attractive to collectors. While exaggerated claims sometimes promise overnight millions, realistic market values depend on condition, rarity, and professional authentication. Philadelphia's high production numbers mean most examples remain affordable for beginner collectors entering the hobby. Yet truly exceptional examples graded at the highest levels can reach impressive price levels because pristine coins from heavily used eras are harder to find. The wheat penny design itself ended in 1958, making 1944 part of the final 15 years of this beloved reverse style. Collectors appreciate the emotional connection between this coin and the broader story of World War II. Even worn examples serve as small historical artifacts linking modern owners to one of the most significant periods in global history. The thrill of searching for a rare steel 1944 penny continues to inspire collectors to inspect old jars and inherited collections carefully. Understanding the difference between common copper issues and rare error coins is essential to avoid unrealistic expectations. Although owning a regular 1944 penny will not instantly create billionaire status, discovering a rare error or high-grade piece can certainly bring meaningful financial reward. In the end, the 1944 wheat penny without a mint mark stands as a symbol of resilience, recycling, and wartime adaptation, proving that even a small copper coin can carry a powerful story within its simple round design. Next up, the 1942 wheat penny without a mint mark is a powerful piece of American history, struck at the very moment the nation was stepping fully into World War II, carrying not just monetary value, but the weight of a world in conflict. This coin was produced by the United States Mint, and because it carries no mint mark, it was struck at the historic facility in Philadelphia, the primary minting center of the country. In 1942, the United States of America had just entered the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and industrial production was shifting rapidly toward military equipment, ammunition, and vehicles. The 1942 penny was still struck in its traditional bronze alloy, primarily copper mixed with tin and zinc, just before the dramatic shift to steel cents in 1943. That makes the 1942 issue part of the final full year of standard bronze wartime pennies before the famous steel experiment began. On the front of the coin is the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a symbol of unity and leadership whose presence on the cent reminded Americans of perseverance during times of national crisis. The design was originally created by Victor David Brenner, whose work gave the Lincoln cent its dignified appearance that continues to define American small coinage. The reverse shows the classic wheat stalk design, framing the words 1 cent, a symbol of agricultural strength and stability during uncertain global times. Because Philadelphia produced hundreds of millions of 1942 pennies, most examples found today are common and heavily circulated. These coins passed through countless wartime transactions, purchasing food, supplies, and daily necessities during rationing and economic adjustment. Over decades of circulation, many coins developed dark brown toning, scratches, and flattened details, especially on Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks. Coins found today in jars or inherited collections may appear dirty or dull, but experienced collectors know that cleaning such coins can reduce their value. The real collector excitement surrounding 1942 pennies often centers on rare varieties, particularly double-die errors where lettering appears slightly duplicated. There are also transitional error possibilities late in 1942 when experimental compositions were tested, though such pieces are extremely rare and highly valuable if authenticated. Stories sometimes exaggerate values, promising overnight millions. But in reality, the majority of 1942 no-mint mark pennies remain modestly priced unless in exceptional condition. High-grade, uncirculated examples with bright, original red luster are far scarcer than worn brown examples and can command significantly higher premiums. Condition is critical, since coins that avoided circulation and were stored carefully retain sharper details and stronger visual appeal. Each 1942 penny is a small artifact of a world at war, potentially struck from copper that might otherwise have supported military production. The coin represents a moment just before dramatic change, as 1943 would bring the temporary steel cent experiment to conserve copper. Collectors appreciate 1942 cents not only for potential value, but for their historical placement at a turning point in American industry. Professional grading services often determine the highest market values, as tiny differences in surface quality can mean large differences in price. The wheat penny design itself would continue until 1958, making 1942 part of the later wartime chapter of the beloved wheat reverse era. Even worn examples still hold emotional value for collectors who appreciate coins connected to significant historical events. The thrill of searching for rare errors keeps hobbyists examining dates and details carefully before spending old coins. While a typical circulated 1942 penny will not make someone a billionaire overnight, a rare high-grade or error example can certainly bring meaningful financial reward. Understanding realistic expectations helps collectors enjoy the hobby without being misled by exaggerated online claims. The beauty of coin collecting lies not only in price, but in the stories preserved in metal across generations. The 1942 wheat penny without a mint mark stands as a quiet witness to a global turning point, linking modern hands to wartime America. Its copper surface reflects both economic necessity and artistic tradition during a year of massive national transformation. In the end, this small bronze coin proves that even a single cent can carry powerful history, reminding us that sometimes the greatest value lies not just in dollars, but in the stories stamped into the metal itself. Next up, the 1952 wheat penny without a mint mark may look like an ordinary copper coin at first glance, but behind its simple round shape lies a powerful story of post-war America, booming industry, and the quiet journey of a 1-cent piece through millions of everyday transactions. This coin was struck by the United States Mint, and because it carries no mint mark beneath the date, it was produced at the historic Philadelphia facility in Philadelphia, the original mint that handled a massive share of the nation's coin production. In 1952, the United States of America was experiencing strong economic growth after World War II. Factories were active, suburbs were expanding, and small coins like the penny were essential in daily cash transactions. The coin is made primarily of copper alloy, giving it that classic reddish-brown appearance that collectors often describe as red, red-brown, or brown, depending on its preserved surface. On the obverse stands the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, whose image had been appearing on the cent since 1909, symbolizing unity, resilience, and American leadership. The design was created by Victor David Brenner, whose artistic portrait became one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. The reverse features 2 wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent, a design that had represented agricultural prosperity and national strength for decades before being replaced in 1959. Because Philadelphia produced hundreds of millions of 1952 pennies, most examples found today are common and were heavily circulated in the 1950s and 1960s. These coins bought candy, newspapers, bus fares, and groceries, moving constantly through pockets, registers, and change drawers without anyone imagining future collector interest. Over time, many 1952 pennies developed scratches, dull surfaces, and darker toning from years of circulation and storage. Coins discovered in jars, drawers, or inherited collections often appear dirty or worn, but experienced collectors know that cleaning such coins can permanently reduce value. The real value difference comes down to condition, since uncirculated examples with bright original red luster are far more desirable than warm brown coins. High-grade coins that avoided circulation and retained sharp detail in Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks can command significantly stronger prices. There are also minor dye varieties and subtle doubled features that collectors search for carefully under magnification. Stories online sometimes exaggerate and promise overnight fortunes, but in reality, the vast majority of 1952 no-mint mark pennies remain modestly valued unless in exceptional condition. Still, the thrill of searching through old rolls and inherited collections continues to inspire collectors around the world. Professional grading services play an important role in identifying coins that qualify as top-tier examples in the marketplace. The wheat penny series itself ended in 1958, making 1952 part of the final years of this beloved reverse design. Each coin carries the quiet history of early 1950s America, a time of television growth, automotive expansion, and suburban development. The copper in these coins reflects an era before major metal composition changes that would later affect American coinage. Collectors appreciate not only the potential value, but the historical connection that comes with holding a coin nearly 3/4 of a century old. Even worn examples still serve as tangible links to grandparents and earlier generations who once used them in everyday life. Understanding realistic value expectations is important, since condition and rarity determine price more than age alone. While it's highly unlikely that a regular 1952 penny will make someone a billionaire overnight, rare high-grade or special variety examples can certainly be worth far more than face value. The key is careful examination, patience, and knowledge rather than excitement driven by exaggerated claims. The beauty of coin collecting lies in discovery, history, and preservation of small artifacts that survived decades of circulation. The 1952 wheat penny without a mint mark stands as a symbol of steady post-war America, quietly reflecting economic growth and everyday life. Its simple round copper form carries decades of stories within its surface marks and toning. In the end, this humble 1-cent coin proves that even ordinary pocket change can hold historical depth, collector appeal, and the possibility of hidden value for those who take the time to look closely before spending it. Next up, the 1957 D-Wheat penny is one of those classic American copper coins that looks ordinary at first glance, but carries the weight of mid-century history, massive production numbers, and the exciting possibility of rare varieties that still capture collectors' attention today. This coin was struck by the United States Mint, and the small D mint mark beneath the date tells us it was produced at the Denver facility in Denver, which was responsible for supplying millions of coins to the western half of the nation. In 1957, the United States of America was experiencing economic strength, suburban expansion, and rapid cultural change, and pennies were heavily used in everyday transactions across grocery stores, gas stations, and corner shops. The coin is composed primarily of copper alloy, giving it that familiar reddish tone when new, which gradually darkens into brown as it circulates and reacts with air and handling. On the obverse appears the long-standing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, a design that had already been on the cent for nearly 50 years by 1957. The portrait was created by Victor David Brenner, whose initials can still be found on Lincoln cents, and whose artwork became one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. The reverse displays the classic wheat stalk design framing the denomination, a symbol of agricultural prosperity that defined the wheat penny era from 1909 until it ended in 1958. Because Denver struck hundreds of millions of 1957 D pennies, most examples found today are common and were widely circulated. These coins passed through countless hands, buying candy, newspapers, and everyday necessities long before anyone thought of saving them as collectibles. Over decades of use, many coins developed scratches, rim nicks, and dark toning, especially on Lincoln's cheek and the wheat stalk tips. Coins discovered today in jars, drawers, or inherited collections may look dirty or worn, but experienced collectors know that cleaning such coins can permanently reduce their value. The real excitement surrounding the 1957 D penny often comes from variety hunting, especially the famous 1957 double die varieties, where lettering appears noticeably doubled. While the most famous double die of that era is from Philadelphia, Denver issues are still carefully examined by collectors hoping to find unusual die characteristics. Condition is the biggest factor in value, since bright red, uncirculated examples are far scarcer than worn brown coins. Coins graded at the highest mint state levels can command significantly stronger premiums compared to heavily circulated examples. Stories sometimes claim that any old penny could make someone a millionaire overnight, but realistic values depend on rarity, preservation, and verified varieties. Professional grading services help confirm authenticity and condition, which can dramatically influence market price. The 1957 D penny is especially interesting because it was struck just 1 year before the wheat reverse design was replaced in 1959 by the Lincoln Memorial reverse. That makes it part of the final chapter of one of the longest-running and most beloved coin designs in American history. Each coin is a small artifact of late 1950s America, a time of classic cars, black and white television, and growing middle-class prosperity. Collectors appreciate not only the financial potential, but the historical connection that comes with holding a coin over 65 years old. Even worn examples still hold nostalgic charm and represent everyday life during a transformative decade. Because so many were produced, finding a circulated 1957 D penny is easy, but locating one in pristine, untouched condition is far more challenging. The copper composition also gives these coins strong visual appeal when original luster remains intact. Understanding realistic expectations is important, Since the majority of 1957, D pennies remain affordable collectibles. However, rare high-grade examples or confirmed error coins can bring impressive prices in competitive auctions. The thrill of coin collecting comes from examining small details carefully and discovering unexpected surprises. Every scratch and mark on a circulated coin tells part of its journey through decades of American commerce. The 1957 D Wheat penny proves that even common coins can become meaningful collectibles when preserved well. While it is unlikely to make someone a billionaire overnight, it absolutely has the power to spark excitement and sometimes deliver strong collector value. In the end, this humble copper cent stands as a symbol of stability, design excellence, and the quiet historical journey of American pocket change, reminding us to always look closely before spending what seems ordinary.